Valve has never been better than they were in 2007. They released the Orange Box, one of the best deals in gaming history. For only $60, you got Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 1, Half-Life 2 Episode 2, Portal, and Team Fortress 2. 3 of those things are brand new, and many other studios would have released them for full price on their own. I truly believe Valve peaked in 2007. This isn't to say they can't still make fantastic games. I mean, Half-Life Alyx is a testament to how good they still are, but compared to what they did back then, it's hard to match up with that legacy. Hey, Jarek here, and I like all Half-Life games. But if I had to list one, a singular game that I think is better than all of the others, it would be Half-Life 2 Episode 2. Every single problem I had with Half-Life 2 was addressed and fixed in this expansion. And it's not too short. You will beat it in roughly 4 to 5 hours, which for an expansion tacked on to such a good deal like the Orange Box is really good. Chapter 1, To the White Forest. This starts where Episode 1 left off. You immediately get a view of what is left of the Citadel and City 17 around it. Now, I wanted an excuse to play this game in VR because the new VR mod just came out. It's quite good, by the way, but this video isn't going to be focusing on that. However, I never noticed how much detail there is in City 17 itself. I was always focusing on the giant laser beam in front of me. By the way, if you're wondering about that laser beam, it's starting to form a super portal. This is obviously really bad news. If the Combine can get directly here from their homeworld, the Resistance stands no chance. We are able to make contact with Eli and Kleiner, and Magnuson.
Magnuson, did you hear that? I'll bet it's the Combine portal code.
Yes, I'm not deaf.
We're supposed to know this character, but this is the first time we've seen him. He just kind of pops up and everyone pretends he's always been there.
Oh, and Freeman, if you pull this off, I might just forgive you for that debacle at Black Mesa. You know the one I mean, involving a certain microwave casserole.
My God, what are you doing?
I guess that line kind of makes it okay. Black Mesa was a huge research facility, so there was bound to be more scientists around. I remember being conflicted on this character when Episode 2 first came out. I found him annoying and insulting, but he's kind of endearing. I just can't hate him.
Oh, excuse me if I'm interrupting tea time.
Anyway, you're still trying to make your way to White Forest so you can meet up with them in person. And do you remember that hunter you saw in the video with Mossman? Well, if you pay close attention,
That worked.
they're there, stalking you, all around this whole chapter. And in my opinion, for reasons I'll get to later, hunters are the best enemy in all of Half-Life. But for now, the game is just establishing that these things cannot be messed with, because they mess Alyx up.
Ah! Oh my God. Ah!
This also gave Valve a chance to flesh out the Vortigons. Vortigons have always been incredibly interesting. They have their own language, they were at one point enemies in Half-Life 1. Their backstory is arguably the most interesting out of all, at least to me. So I've always been super happy that they got a bigger role in Episode 2. This chapter also introduces the Antlion Grubs, which, if you didn't know, these are the things that the medkits are made out of. You probably realize this when you play through Half-Life Alyx. This chapter also introduces the Antlion Workers. Thank God. I've never been a big fan of fighting antlions. They just kind of continuously respawn and mindlessly try to overwhelm you. They have a really interesting visual design, but the way you fight them is just not very fun or engaging. Antlion Workers don't rewrite the whole system, but at least you have to deal with something that will A, explode when you kill it, and B, have a projectile attack. Any bit of variety to the antlions is going to be a good thing. What's even better is that these antlions don't continuously respawn in these caves. Chapter 2, the Vortal Coil. I'm gonna be honest, the cave sections in Chapter 1 and 2 drag on a little bit too long. If there was a down point in Episode 2, it would be these chapters. However, the high points more than make up for that. Case in point, this defense section. I'm usually not a big fan of defense sections, but they nailed this one. They give you ways to set up traps, and just enough time to be prepared for the next wave. There's also some nice build up to this defense section. It starts slow, and then you get more and more enemies with each coming wave. Eventually, Vortigons pour in, and you get to see how badass they are in this game. Oh, and you also get to fight next to them with some awesome new music. Well, after this brief break, you're back into the tunnels. In episode 2's defense, you also fight zombies. You're not just fighting antlions, and... Did that Vortigon just curb stomp a zombie? I never noticed half of these animations. I usually just went right through here, but no, the Vortigons have animations for all of these enemies. Well, eventually you get thrown into this section where you're running away from an antlion guard, and meh. This isn't bad. It's more interesting when you think about it as the precursor to what would happen with Half-Life Alyx's Jeff, but you're really just running around for an antlion guard, and that's all this is. All of this is just setting up the Vortigons being too busy healing Alyx so that G-Man could do his thing.
Dr. Freeman, I realize this moment may not be the most convenient for a heart-to-heart. But I had to wait until your friends were otherwise occupied. When you see your father relay these words, prepare for unforeseen consequences.
God, his voice actor is so good that I'm not even mad. I love listening to what G-Man has to say, as weird and creepy as he is. Chapter 3, Freeman Pontifex. You're finally out of the caves. The game basically starts here after a detour, and just to put more pressure on the player, you're immediately greeted by a large combine force advancing towards White Forest. You need to beat them there. Hey, the antlion guard is back. It's the same thing as Half-Life 2. You've fought this plenty of times before, but now there's 2 of them. This is a little disappointing, because episode 2 generally tries to add a twist to things you've already experienced, but not here. But eventually you get to this mine outpost, and this is where I can talk about episode 2's map design. One of my biggest complaints with Half-Life 2 is that the maps for the most part are kind of just hallways. This is really confusing, because in Half-Life 1, the map design would twist in on itself and it was really vertical. Despite the fact that you were literally in hallways in Half-Life 1, it didn't feel like it from a map design standpoint. Take Blast Pit for example. This is as vertical as you're getting. You get a goal right away, everything loops around, you eventually go back to the start before you can continue. Half-Life 2 really didn't do this much, it was just hold forward for the most part. In episode 2, this couldn't be further from the truth. This mine outpost is a fantastic example. You see your end goal right away, you need to get to the car on the other end of that bridge. But in order to get there, you need to traverse through a bunch of poison, a bunch of vertical staircases, a bunch of drops. And hey, do you remember all those teeter-totter puzzles you had to do in Half-Life 2? Well, once you make it to the car, do that again, but big. Yeah, the set piece is just there to get your car, but I'm not even mad, it's really good. Chapter 4, Riding Shotgun. A lot happens in this chapter, and we need to talk about this car. Oh boy, this car is a thing in VR. Yeah, so if you're playing the VR mod and you don't have very strong VR legs, I would highly recommend turning on comfort settings. Thankfully, I've played a lot of VR, so none of this bothered me, but I'm definitely rare. The car also controls a little weird in VR. I mean, the controls are basic, however, in order to boost, you need to press in on the left analog stick, which is the same thing you're using to steer, which makes it very easy to spin out if you're not careful. I found an easy way to get around this is to press forward on the left analog stick. This doesn't make you drive forward, the right trigger makes you drive forward. But by pressing forward on the left analog stick, you ensure that your car is already going straight before you start boosting. Anyway, this chapter, about halfway through the game, is where you finally fight the hunter for the first time. And once again, the hunter is stalking you this whole time. As I said at the beginning of this video, hunters are the best enemy in the whole Half-Life franchise. At least to me. I love fighting them. They fixed so many issues I had with base Half-Life 2. A lot of enemies in Half-Life 2 kind of just felt dumb. They sort of just ran straight at you, especially the Combine. A lot of this has to do with the map design itself, but the end result's the same. Hunters either charge straight at you or fire a projectile at you. This projectile is not hit scan and has a delayed explosion. This means you can always dodge their damage, or you can use your gravity gun to launch their projectiles back at them. As for the hunters themselves, they're just tanky enough to where you need to watch your resources, so you're forced to swap weapons intuitively without realizing it. or use your gravity gun. But best of all, they come in packs of 3. And they're very agile, so it really does feel like they are hunting you. It makes enemies feel a lot smarter than they actually are. Is it a bit of an illusion? Yes. But does it matter? No, the game's still very fun. Now, hunters had to be a good enemy, because Valve was building them up for a full episode and a half. Thankfully, they didn't disappoint. And speaking of Valve building things up for an episode and a half, a little bit down the road you come across a Combine Advisor Pod. Now these were introduced in episode 1 as something you don't want to mess with. And yeah, this interaction is just supposed to drill that into your head. And into this guy's. Finally, to round out this chapter, you're chased by a helicopter. This is effectively just an improved version of Water Hazard, except for the helicopter isn't chasing you for 40 minutes. Most importantly though, you've already fought this helicopter numerous times. There needed to be a more interesting way to take it down other than just shoot rockets at it. So that's what Valve gave us, something different. In order to take down this helicopter, you have to launch its own mines back at it. It's a simple solution, but it's oddly satisfying, and even more satisfying in VR.
That's gonna leave a mark.
Remember when I mentioned I was a bit disappointed by the Antlion guard fight? This is why. They changed things up quite a bit in episode 2, but didn't change things up back then. Chapter 5. Under the Radar. To be honest, this is just kind of a pit stop to set up a new mechanic. You need to take out this Combine auto turret. There's not a whole lot to say about this. It's an interesting little set piece. It's pretty fun. It's not revolutionary, just slightly different, and that's all that's really needed to be fun. When you return to your car, one of the civilians has attached a radar to detect resistance caches. What this is effectively setting up is Highway 17, but better. In Highway 17, you're always seeing these buildings you can stop by and explore. You can take this entire chapter at your own pace, and it is quite fun. Well, pretty much everything you do with the car in episode 2 is that, just even more polished and in a windy, mountainous road. These resistance caches also usually have their own little puzzle or their own set piece. For example, launching yourself with a grenade, or holding out while zombies attack out of nowhere.
Uh-oh. I think the zombies want their stuff back.
Not rewriting the rules, but giving you some variety instead of just driving. And the fact that you were the one that decided to stop and explore, you weren't forced to do this, makes it a lot more rewarding. It also makes ambushes a genuine surprise. Like for example, this moment here, which might be my favorite combat sequence out of all of Half-Life. Your car is stopped, you're trapped inside of this house, Combine are attacking from all angles, and eventually hunters start popping in. This house has multiple floors, you have multiple different angles you can go. No two playthroughs are going to play the same way here. This map design gives enemies so many different directions to approach from, unlike the base game. And to add on top of it, now you have to deal with the hunters, which are already very fun on their own. So yeah, this is a fantastic combat set piece. But then we get to chapter 6, our Mutual Fiend. Yes, it is our Mutual Fiend, not friend. And boy, a lot happens in this chapter. You finally arrive at White Forest. You finally reunite with Kleiner and Eli. You finally deliver the transmission packet that you picked up at the beginning of episode 1. Before you can decipher any of this information, you're interrupted by a Combine attack. And this honestly reminds me a lot of Half-Life 1. You're in cramped spaces, but a lot of them are quite vertical, and this map design is more than just hallways, even though you're literally in just hallways. Anyway, once that distraction is finally removed, we're finally able to see what's been deciphered. It involves the Borealis, a project Aperture Science has been working on that's apparently both extremely important and extremely dangerous. What I want to focus on though is the conversation you have with Eli right after.
Dad, prepare for unforeseen consequences.
What did you say? Unforeseen consequences. The last time I heard those words was back at Black Mesa. You had just stepped into the test chamber when he whispered them in my ear. You know who I'm talking about. Our mutual friend. When he brought in that crystal, I knew I should have aborted that damn test, but I didn't. The whole world went to hell that day. And now he's using my little girl, putting words in her mouth. God damn it. I should have known when he rescued her it was for his own damn reasons.
So Eli knows more than he's letting off. He even mentioned G-Man was the one that delivered the crystal. He was the one that set up the resonance cascade. All of this was because of G-Man, and we finally have someone with answers. Who is G-Man? Who does he work for? What are his motives? What is his goal? Well, before any of that can come out, your conversation gets interrupted by Magnuson.
Tea time.
To be fair, this is a justified interruption. Striders are coming in to take down the rocket, which you are going to be using to destroy the super portal. So you kinda need to defend that. Magnuson introduces the Magnuson device, which is fantastic because it makes Striders a lot less annoying to fight. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels this way, but Striders have not really been fun at all. They take a million rockets, they do a ton of damage to you very quickly, and I don't know, they are really interesting design that Valve could have done a lot more with. Now that I think about it, Valve seems to really like making three-legged designs. Anyway, this is the final combat sequence in the game. It's really just that bigger version of the defense section with the antlions, but with a twist. Striders are coming in from every direction, but they mostly ignore you, tunnel visioned on shooting down the rocket. Don't get me wrong, they will occasionally shoot at you, but for the most part, that's not your concern. Your concern is to get rid of all of the hunters that are running around. You can do this pretty easily by just running them over or by launching logs at them. Anyway, instead of needing to shoot a million rockets at these things, you just launch one Magnuson device, shoot it once, and then move on. I know I already said it, but I can't stress this enough. This makes Striders so much more fun to fight. I actually enjoy their presence now, which is not something I could say before. By the way, spoiler warning if you haven't beaten episode 2, because we're coming to the end of the game here. Now that the rocket is safe, you fire it, and get to watch the super portal close. But in mere moments, from one room to the next, the mood goes from this to this.
Close your eyes, honey.
I love you, Dad.
Don't look.
No! Oh my God! No! No! Dad! Oh God! Dad! Dad! Dad, please! Dad! Oh my God! No! No! Oh my God! Dad! No! Don't leave me!
Pay attention to my phrasing. Since 2007, this is where we've been. The story hasn't progressed at all from this moment. We finally found out that someone knew something, anything about G-Man, and this is what happens. Well, despite that ending, despite the fact that we've never gotten to episode 3 or a Half-Life 3, episode 2 is still one of the best things Valve has ever done, if not the best game they've ever made. The sheer amount of quality and polish put into this one expansion and then shoved into a ridiculous package like the Orange Box, it's a product of a bygone era. Half-Life Alyx has confirmed that we will see another Half-Life game someday. We just don't know when that will be. And that should sum up my video on episode 2. For an expansion that is less than 5 hours long, there is a lot to say, and I hope you enjoyed it. Huge thanks to my YouTube members, you can see them right there. These people get to see my videos ahead of time. Hey, I had a lot of fun streaming. I love streaming VR games. I don't do it too much because people seem to not care about VR, but if you want to come follow me on Twitch, I do stream often. Check my Twitch right over there. If you want to come follow me on Twitter, I tweet out stuff pretty often. My handle is right over there. Thank all you for watching. I'll see you next video.